dark, kindle the spark in me. How about that? One little spark creates just enough light that now you can start to see things in an otherwise dark place. How about that? Here on today's episode of Flicker, I want us to take a look at the next sentence of Jesus in what we call the Sermon on the Mount. We talked in our last episode about Jesus' use of the image of being salt for the earth. And the imagery that we looked at, it seemed to be that the way salt gives itself away in sort of quiet, unassuming ways for the benefit of everything else around it. That's how Jesus sees his community, his people, present in the world. We don't have to be flashy or draw attention to ourselves. Our presence is simply seasoning the world like salt, doing this sort of subtle presence by giving ourselves away. And then Jesus follows it up with another image that on the one hand seems rather different. The next thing Jesus says, looking at his disciples gathered around him, "You are the light of the world," he says. So now we're not talking about little crystals of salt that you use to melt ice or season food or preserve beef jerky, but now we're talking about light. And he goes on to say, a city on the hill can't be hid, but up there everybody can see it. And you don't put a lamp under a bushel basket. You put it on a lampstand so everybody can see it. And at first you might think Jesus is just sort of trotting out random object lessons, but I think there's something in common between what salt does and how the light works. Especially in Jesus' day, a day where there aren't LED light bulbs or incandescent bulbs or fluorescent bulbs. So many of the sources of light we're used to, we don't think of as something spending itself. But in Jesus' world, especially if you're talking about a lamp inside a house, you're talking about a flame that consumes itself, that gives itself away. The oil in the lamp, the wick in the candle, lets itself be given away in order to bring light to what is around it, in order to illuminate, to make the world around it better, to make it brighter. That's all it does. That's all light does, right? It gives itself away. We are constantly in the presence of these sort of sermons, these object lessons in the universe itself, just all around us. Jesus wants to call our attention to the way so much of the world God has made is centered on the logic of giving ourselves away. And Jesus says that's how light operates too. And of course, when light does that, when light does what it's supposed to be, you can't help but notice it, right? We don't have to go marching through the streets with a parade calling attention to ourselves. If we're just living the Jesus way of life, if we are pointing to who God is, both in our words and in our actions, that will grab people's attention. The way we give ourselves away becomes our witness. For so much of the last 2,000 years of church history, I think we've misunderstood what it means to be light for the world. I think we've sometimes assumed that the goal was to be as gaudy, as flashy, as to grab as much attention for ourselves as possible in order that then people would want to join our club. I don't think that's how the image works. I mean, the darkness simply benefits from the light's presence in it, and the light is intentionally placed in the places where there isn't enough light yet. You and I are sent out into the midst of the world in all the places that need it. So instead of us treating church like we are sort of this little country club removed, and if we just sort of toot our own horn enough or talk about how great we are or have a big flashy enough sign, more people will come to where we are. I think Jesus envisions the opposite. All the places that feel God forsaken, all the places that are just aching with brokenness, all the places around us where there's heartache and trouble and disaster, that's where we're sent. And our job is, once again, just like Saul, simply to give ourselves away. And as we do that in little moments, I mean, again, a lampstand, a little oil lamp is not the floodlights that you'd use in the city. These are small little lights, but the more we do that, the more we will reflect the character of God's love for the rest of the world. So in the rest of this day, Maybe our mission is just like it was yesterday. Look for ways to give ourselves away, going intentionally into the places that feel like they are darkest, that they are most in need, that they are most broken, rather than we're going to meet in the church building and everybody should come to us where we are. What if we go out into the places that are most aching and hurting and needful, and find ourselves simply giving ourselves away with the same kind of love we've seen in Jesus first? That just might become irresistible. Hey, join us next time for more conversation here on Flickr.